like I can handle rejection really well. And I have like totally flipped the narrative now that like rejection is a great thing. I prefer to get rejected like as quickly as possible because I don't like wasting my time on proposals and hoping that something's going to fall through. So I think I've really reframed my entire mind and outlook on rejection.
Hey, everybody. My name is Tom LaFaso. This is the Follow the Winners podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about success, what it means to us, and my guest here today, which is Rachel Fain. She is the proud owner of she's the proud owner of Nash News and as well as Bounce right here in Syosset. We're going to be talking about, again, like success, social media, what it's like to grow, and as well as following the winners. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Rachel here. She's going to introduce herself. So Rachel, what's going on?
Hi. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. This is so funny to me because Tom and I have known each other since high school. A quick introduction to myself. I am an entrepreneur or a business owner, and I own two very different businesses, as Tom mentioned. So I spend half of my time on the Nash News, which is like a country music digital media company, and half my time running a brick and mortar family entertainment center in Long Island called Bounce. Both are very different in many ways. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get into it. And I went to college at Hofstra University here on Long Island, and I pretty much graduated and became an entrepreneur. So I never really had a job or like corporate experience or anything like that. And obviously when the pandemic hit, I learned a lot about all different walks of life that I could have taken that I didn't. But yeah, that's pretty much my story.
Cool. All right. Well, in a quick nutshell, obviously we'll get more into it. So obviously throughout all of that, I mean, we know that, I know, and anybody that wants to look up Nash News, you've done very well. You have at this point, like 140 something thousand followers. And that's just on Instagram. I know that it grows bigger than that. So that's super cool. And as well as even Bounce too. I mean, that's very, very popular. It's not like you can ask anybody on Long Island, like, you know about Bounce? I'm like, yeah, of course. If they have kids, they're like, I've been there. Or if they're, a little bit older, they're like, yeah, I've heard about it, So it's cool that you're involved in two like major, companies, I guess you could, definitely at this point, two major businesses. So my first question basically, or kind of my second question, because you already answered the first, is who you are. But what does success mean to you? I know it's kind of like a tough question to really answer. Everybody has different ways to look at it. So that's why I like to ask this question. So in a nutshell, what is success to you?
That's a great question. I think that my definition of success has changed a lot as I've gotten older. And again, I guess like through the pandemic, which I know we're like 2 years out of it almost, or a year and a half out of it, but I feel like the results or the consequences of it have been lingering, at least in my life. And I'm sure in pretty much everybody else's. But I think when I was younger, I've always been super career driven and super entrepreneurial. So my definition of success was very like textbook. I want to own a business. I want to live comfortably. I think now that I'm older, my definition of success is way more around like balance. Mm-hmm. The benefit of being an entrepreneur is freedom. But since I didn't have corporate experience, I had to learn how to like create my own structure. That's been really challenging. But now that I finally like got into a routine with that, I think my definition of success is way more about like balance and happiness and like mental and physical health, along with obviously wanting to live comfortably and wanting to be successful. Like my vision of success is owning a number of businesses. But that has just come with so many challenges that I think half of the time you're kind of like, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, no. Sure.
And yeah, I hope that answers your question. But
no, it absolutely does. It's funny. I literally just said this to somebody like right before this podcast, because I heard something similar the other day, just like there's these ups and downs, and I think every like entrepreneur or anybody who's like trying to pursue something goes through, and the downs are like so doubting, and you're like, am I doing the right thing right now? Is this really it? But then the ups are like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm doing it,
Yeah. The best entrepreneurs are just, if nothing else, persistent.
Yeah, as well. And also the one of the other things that you said too that I find is a key point, and something I spoke about on the last podcast, is that I think there's like a weird stigma about making money and the word success in like the same sentence. And I mean, realistically, yes, you can be successful and do as you please and so on and so forth, but you do need to be able to survive. And surviving at different means is obviously different for everybody. Nobody needs a mansion and like needs a Lamborghini and things like that, but that's like the fruits of your labor at some point in your career, obviously. And that to me is like a point that I think everybody has to like try and understand where they land in that, because it isn't always really about money, but it is at the same time like growing what makes you passionate and makes you happy.
Yeah, I think that there's like a stigma of when people say that their definition of success is money or mansions. It's like, oh, well, like that's not living. Money can't buy you happiness. But at the same time, like I look at it so the opposite way. Whenever I see people who are like, oh, my definition of success is like balance and never like just working 9 to 5 and like absolutely having boundaries, never working a minute outside of your 9 to 5. Like, but if your boss asks you to do something, like you're really not going to do it. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't know.
No, they're not.
And there's so many people like that, but I don't think that that's realistic. It's not realistic to like look at your life in a nutshell and like not consider work. Like work doesn't have to be your life. Your career doesn't have to be your priority, but I don't think it's fair when people give off the perception that it's like the tiniest part of your job or of your life, because it really is 40 hours of your week.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's so important to do something that you at least enjoy.
Yeah. But it also doesn't have to be a career path in a sense, like anything that makes somebody passionate and finds that success. There's a lot of people who do like nonprofit work. It's probably the best example for somebody like that. Someone who literally asks for nothing in return, but they're super successful at it. Like I could talk about this now because my grandmother has passed, but when she was alive, she was like a mecca in the AA community, like huge.
Oh, that's incredible.
Like people all over Long Island and down in Florida, like you just drop her name, they like know who she was and like have amazing stories that she's helped her. And like my grandfather, after she passed, would get like tons of phone calls being like, oh, she helped me so much. Like, and it's so cool because like she didn't make any like financial success from that, but like helped so many people and like actually found success in it,
So that's like fulfillment. Yeah. I think that there's a degree of fulfillment that is really important to like a well-balanced life. But that's incredible about your grandma. I did not know that. I'm sorry that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But yeah, it was like really cool to learn. Like, I mean, we knew where she was like, that she was like popular in the industry, we could call it, but like to the extent that she was, we were all like, whoa, we didn't know it until after she passed. Cause a lot of people started coming forward and being like, oh, she helped me so much. Yeah. We were like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, things like that are very, very interesting, and that's why I ask right off the bat, like, what does success mean to you? Just because I want to get like a general understanding. I think a lot of people we all find very much similarities as far as like just like living in comfort and like not putting ourselves in scenarios that like are going to be too stressful and whatever. But at the end of the day, like we do have to reach for the stars, Yeah.
What does success mean to you?
What does success mean to me? That is a good question. Success means to me is growing. Actually, no, let me backtrack. Because success, I actually have done this. Like I've done this workbook, I guess you could call it, or whatever, but like the 7 whys. I don't know. But success to me, realistically, is leaving a legacy behind for not only like my own family that doesn't really exist at this point in my life, or like, even just like my sisters and my brother and like my cousins, things like that. I truly think that for me, that's like my definition of success, is to be able to like find myself at a point where I can leave a legacy that lets everybody around me kind of look at life like a little bit differently. Cause I'm so I know me and you look at life very similar because we are pursuing our dreams, and not everybody really does that. A lot of people are stuck in these 9 to 5 jobs because they have bills, because they have kids, and like, I get it. But to me, it's like the hardest thing to even have these conversations with people that I love, because it's like, I can't really show them. I can't really tell them until I show them, in a sense. So that's like my goal, is like, I hope I can live to like 100 years old, just so I can be like, look what I've amassed. And hopefully now you can change your mind just a little bit on how to go about this, and maybe, treat your kids differently when they decide that they like something, or they want to pursue something, or like whatever it is. Everybody has these signs and has what they like, and kind of knows where their success path is. It's just a matter of somebody kind of telling you like, hey, you should do that, you should try this, giving you like that, encouragement, in a sense.
I feel like the way we grew up, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but I think the path is forged on you, or at least there's a very specific path that is pushed on you, from like suburban high school. And I agree, it would be nice to hear some people turn around, even like forget about being an entrepreneur. I really feel like, knowing what I know now, there's tons of people that I went to high school with who like would have been better off in like a union, and not have to waste their time with college, which I think, you could tell me if you disagree, but I feel like we
I
were
agree
very
a
much
hundred.
pushed to go into a 4-year college. Our high school was very proud of what their rate of kids that went to college was. And
Yeah.
it's just like not the best path for everybody.
No.
I always say that if I knew where I would be now in my life, I would have never went to college, which I think I only mean 50% of the time.
Yeah.
But I see why the younger generation is pushing against college, and like, as they should. How does your family feel about you being an entrepreneur? Going back to the answer to your question.
Yeah. I just, before you even said that, because what you just said is definitely interesting. I don't think college is necessary at all in a lot of situations. There is probably, I can name like probably half the people I graduated with that went to college that didn't need to go to college because of the jobs that they have now. And at the
100%.
same point, this career that I've taken, there were so many people who told me like, oh, you have to go to college in order to get a marketing job, and like to do this and do that. No, you don't. You just have to know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. That's all it is. No one's going to ask you where you went to school if you can literally show them that you know what you're talking about. And all that
Yeah,
takes is an interview, really.
or real world experience or research, but definitely so many
Yeah.
alternatives to college that I think are just a better use of your time. And I agree with you. I know so many people who are going to college, or who just like wish that they didn't waste the
Yeah.
money and the time, and are on waiting lists to become cops, or on waiting lists to become
Yeah.
to work in unions, and they really could have skipped so much of their life if they just got, I
Yeah.
think, like more opportunities introduced to them in high school
Absolutely.
sooner.
We're pushed down a lot because it's just our it's the fears of people around us that, I mean, a lot of people do know this, the people around us portray their fears on us, and they're like, oh, like basically going into what you just asked me, like, was my family like, no, I quit my job, and my mom and my dad were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's literally what they told me. They like straight up, they called them separately. They both said the exact same thing. They were like, you had a great job. Why would you quit? And I was like, because I hated it. I can't do it. Uh, um,
Yeah, I could relate to that a lot. I think my parents have like a full understanding of bounce. I think one, because it's local,
yeah.
two, because it's just like a little bit more straightforward in the business model. It's like a brick and mortar place where kids go in to have fun. And like dollars in, dollars out is just very straightforward. When I try to talk to them, or really anybody outside of media, about the Nash news, it is like a complete cluster. Like, they have no clue what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. They don't think it's a good idea. They just don't understand it. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
I believe it. So actually, all right. So my next question is, tell me about your business. And
Okay.
then there's like a side question in that question, and what makes you tick. So I guess tell me about your business first.
Okay.
Just you could start with one, or however you want to go about it.
I'll start with Bounce. So Bounce is a family entertainment center. It's we call it like Vegas for kids. It's just like an indoor kids.
Why have I not heard that?
I don't know. It's an indoor kids entertainment facility. Shout out to you, Tom, for crushing the video content that you make and all of the social media that you help with. But pretty much we have like different attractions for kids to play on. trampolines, a ropes course, laser tag, bumper cars. We also have like a fully functioning restaurant and bar, which I will say we make more pizza pies than like most pizza places that I know. I think on average we do like 220 pies a day on a Saturday or Sunday, which is pretty crazy.
That's
We
crazy.
provide all of the food for our birthday parties. So like the main service there is like birthday parties, open play sessions for kids.
Yeah.
It's really unique. It's just like it's so funny. I hate telling people I work at Bounce because they assume I'm like a cashier at Bounce, but I'm actually a partner there. And I'm really in charge of like the operation and like workflows and how to make things efficient and stuff like that. I really do wear a lot of, I think in both of my business, I think owning a business, you just wear a lot of hats. But in that business, I'm in charge of a lot of like the marketing, the HR, and like the operations.
Yeah.
On totally different note, the Nash News is country music media. So we make a lot of content for social media. We do a lot of press coverage, like single reviews, tour announcements, all in the country music sphere. We're kind of starting to head into like more entertaining content. So we'll do like little skits, and we've hired like producer for that. We also throw events. So in Nashville, every week on Thursdays, we have a writers round at Assembly Food Hall, which is like one of the things that I'm most proud of that we do because have you ever been to Nashville?
No,
Oh my God, you have to go. It's so fun.
no.
But on the strip, Broadway, which is like the main downtown strip, there's this food court and it's just like the coolest place. I really don't know of an equivalent near us. It's like the coolest food court you've ever been to. I sound like such a weirdo when I nerd out on it, but it's like just a really cool place. And it sees like hundreds of thousands of tourists a weekend. And when you go down the other bars in Broadway, all of the artists have to play covers. So like when you walk into a bar, you're hearing your favorite Luke Bryan song, Jason Aldean song, whatever's popular.
Yeah.
But we give artists an opportunity as part of our showcase to like really play their original music to tourists. So they really get an honest reaction from tourists on how their music is, how their songs are. And we just get a lot of like rising singer-songwriters. We've also had some like really cool people who have like written #1 songs play on that stage as part of the showcase, but we started that last March. So almost a year now that we've been doing it every week in Nashville. So events are kind of like a big part of what we do too. But anything that connects like country music fans is we're kind of in the middle of.
That's cool. And I feel like the event thing, it wasn't like that at first though, right?
Yeah, that's new. So I've been doing the Nash News it was a passion project turned business. So I guess I turned it into a business almost 2 years ago, a little bit less than 2 years ago. And we only started doing that a little bit less than a year ago. So the first like iteration of the Nash News was really social media, like press promotion heavy. So we work with like artists and their teams to create like promotional plans for them. And we do like social media campaigns and stuff like that. That was the first iteration, but I've just been trying to like grow it out to different streams so that it's like a healthy, well-rounded business.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll get back into that a little bit more. So then the second part of that question is like, what makes you tick? What makes you wake up every day and be like, this is it, this is it, this is what I want to do.
My dogs, I guess, so I can give them a great life. They make me really happy. I don't exactly know. I think I find like the part of the job in both companies that I'm most passionate about is like really creating efficient workflows and operations, which I know is kind of nerdy. But really like automating all of our processes and just making sure that like processes are followed and make sense. I try to make like my teams as efficient as possible so
Yeah.
I can really instill like boundaries. Like we shouldn't be doing this more than 40 hours a week. So how can we do the best that we can in 40 hours? So I guess that's like the part of the job that I'm most passionate about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like literally being a business owner, and in most cases, it's like constantly refining that wheel over and over and over, trying new things, rebuilding the website, like.
Yeah. I think in the Nash News, like what makes me most excited is like all of the opportunities we have had to give artists a platform. So like we were the first company to throw like the first ever LGBTQ like pride stage at a country music festival, which was like monumental, historic, and gave artists an opportunity that they wouldn't have.
That's
We're
cool.
also like one of the only companies that really works with like independent female artists in events. So like whenever we do an event, we do everything we can to involve at least one independent female artist, um, which is just a platform that they really don't have.
I mean, thinking about the little guy, that's always a good thing, right? That's awesome. All right, cool. I mean, it's basically a simple way that, what makes you tick in a sense. It's just the day-to-day processes of going through it and getting it done. So the next thing, this is kind of just like, this can be pertaining to anything, like literally anything in life. So I've been asking everybody in these podcasts is, have you ever won in anything at life? Like anything at all? And
That's like
explain it to me, obviously. But anything, even if it was like a base, like no, I was gonna say baseball, but like a game that you were in, a sports team, or like you. I remember this. Remember you used to swim. Come on, bring back the days.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. I think because we went to high school together, high school was the first thing that came to mind. I was class president. I did win as that. Like if we're talking like a
That's
formal
pretty good.
win. Yes. And I won and then no one ran against me the next year. So that was technically a second win. So I was class president. And then you were like honored in for senior year. So I was class president for 3 years in high school.
That's
I
pretty
won
cool.
at that. I won the lottery when I became the owner of Bounce, in my opinion. So if
How
that
did you even
counts,
come across that? Like, how did that happen?
yeah, it's a crazy story. I worked there in high school as a senior in high school, and I ended up staying home, going to college locally. So I continued to work there. And when I graduated college, which was a little bit earlier than my peers, I really didn't know what I was going to do like my next year, because all of my friends were still in college. So I was like, I'm just going to go travel around to see all my friends. I'll start working the following year. They just offered me the ownership. I was gifted the ownership, which was really cool because it wasn't like, I wasn't raised rich. I couldn't buy into a company like that. And I was
Yeah.
just a college kid. So it was gifted to me right as I
Obviously,
graduated college, which was,
not to cut you off, but obviously they gifted it to you because they saw potential in you. They didn't just gift it to you for no reason.
yeah, I definitely worked hard at that job, which I think was just abnormal because it's such like a minimum wage atmosphere that for somebody who like they saw somebody else who really cared. I've learned as a business owner, like you really can't pay your employees to care. So you could like teach them anything. You could teach them how to use your systems and processes and workflows, but you can't teach them to care. You can't pay them to care. So I feel like I treasure that so much because they treasured that in me, and now I just take that in my like future businesses.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I appreciate you saying that. I do think it's true. I worked pretty much full time in high school and all through college, and then that's how I became the owner of them.
But you were saying like, before I cut you off, you were saying like you were in college and then what happened? They like offered you the position while you were in school?
Just as as I was graduating and like really didn't know what my plans were, so starting to look at jobs. I was interviewing for a job in Chicago, and I was just kind of like starting to tell them like, okay, like I'm moving on, unfortunately. And then they just offered me a piece of the ownership, and I gladly took it because at that point, and still, it was just like winning the lotto. So
Yeah.
I wanted that.
No, I would say that's a great answer right there. That would be definitely winning in life. And that's awesome because you have been able to help them so much and grow. And from what it was when you first started working there to what this place is now is like night and day.
Yeah.
It went from a trampoline park to like a full-blown amusement park. So it's like
Yeah.
that's really, really cool. All right. So then this is like, let's say before this entrepreneurial like change in your life, because before this, I'm sure you had like many of like thoughts and like we're feeling this like, I've talked to other entrepreneurs at this point and they say that there's like almost like a flame that burns inside some people that like not everybody has it. I mean, I think you definitely understand that. Like you said, you can't pay your employees to care. Like just not everybody like gets that. So before you even took on Bounce and whatever, but did you have like different cultural beliefs then that you had now that you have now that you had to like remove, even something that maybe you were like raised on or something along those lines that you had to like reprogram your brain to think a different way?
That's a great question. I think in general, if you want to be successful um, in any job or as owning a business, you have to reframe yourself to lose your ego.
Yeah.
um, Unfortunately, I don't know if that's like the answer you're looking for. That's just the first thing that came to mind is like, you definitely lose your ego. Like, I have definitely become a tougher person, like on the inside, and just like I can handle rejection really well. And I have like totally flipped the narrative now that like rejection is a great thing. I prefer to get rejected like as quickly as possible because I don't like wasting my time on proposals and hoping that something's going to fall through. So I think I've really reframed my entire mind and outlook on rejection.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, and I go back and forth with it like still, but I think like that would probably be the value in me that's changed the most. You can't really be sensitive, and you can't really take things personally. So I think just a lot of like learning that things really aren't personal.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
very few things in life that are actually personal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great answer. Because I think that's one of the things I was able to learn a little bit early on getting myself involved in sales, because it's just constant, like, yeah, you're gonna get denied many of times, and it's maybe in a day or maybe even, in a week, however, whatever your job is in a sense. And that, denial, rejection, and being put down, you put a job posting, like, you haven't really probably searched for a job in a while, but if you go on Indeed for some people where they're looking for jobs and so on, they get these emails that say, unfortunately, you did not get this job. And like those are hurt sometimes. You get that and you're like, man, I thought I was gonna get that, or at least they'll call me for an interview or something. Like having to like constantly just deal with those kinds of things and grow from it and allow it to like, not hurt you. You ever see that picture of I think it's a wolf, and it has like there's like a baby wolf and it has like one arrow through it, and then it's like the adult wolf and it has like several arrows through it.
I
It's
don't
like
think
it's
so.
a drawing. It's not
Okay.
like a real thing, but it basically shows you like as you get older, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna take a lot more arrows. You just gotta, toughen up kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that is perfectly said.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's really cool that you've kind of that was a perfect answer and that you've made
Thank
that
you.
correlation, because I think not only for myself but for a lot of people that is definitely a major thing that we all have to like kind of get over the hump of,
Yeah.
sadly I think too a lot of that comes down to like I just feel like, and my parents would probably hate me for even saying things like this, but like I just feel like growing up, I didn't, and like when I was passionate about something that like it might have been overseen or whatever it was, where you did get like a rejection in a sense, as a kid, you might be like, oh, I really like this. And then your parents or your family members or a friend might just be like, oh, that's stupid. That's not a good idea. And having to like be an adult and like remove that out of your life, it definitely is a tricky situation.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing situation. Like I think the number one thing with rejection, it's not like I still am upset when I get rejected, but I think I've just like and you should be. Everyone should be, to some degree, but I think I've just kind of learned like to kind of reframe it and reprogram it and be like, okay, this just means that like it answered whatever question you had in your mind, your heart about what was going to happen next, and now you can move forward with an actual plan
Yeah.
that's realistic in a different direction.
Yeah. And work harder towards that goal, You're like, all right, this one didn't work. Time for the next one.
Yeah. At the Nash News headquarters, we're gonna have a sign, which it doesn't exist yet, but sometimes we just work at each other's like apartments and stuff, and we call it Nash News HQ. We're gonna have a sign that says "Nobody cares, work harder." So it's just like an inside joke between me and all my Nash News employees.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But I mean, excuse me, it's true because nobody really cares at the end of the day. It's funny because I was just talking in the other podcast I did the other day. We were talking and it reminded me of how I changed my phone background to like this back, it was about 2 years ago. I changed my background too. It was like work every day for 2 years, and then like 2 years later, like see what it comes to. And then after that, it had like a small paragraph, and it was like after those 2 years, people are gonna like look at you and they're gonna be like, how did you do that? Like whatever, because nobody really cares at the end of the day. Like it's like I could slave my life away, put these, which I'm doing, 15-hour work days, which is just crazy in some cases. Nobody knows, nobody cares. It's not like I can sit here and like live stream myself working all day long.
Yeah. And I think most people have their own iteration of what they're doing anyway that they care way more about.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, kind of like a similar question is, this is something that like has been helping me move along in like my day to day and the things that I go through. So I ask everybody, it's not really ask you like what religion you are in a sense, but are you like spiritual at all? And like, do you use it to move you forward? Like, do you like meditate? Do you like pray? Like, do you do anything where like it helps you?
That's a complicated question.
I know it's kind of like a deep question.
Um, okay, so personally, I think it comes in waves. Um, I like the idea of spirituality being something to fall back on when times are tough and like you really feel like you don't have anything else.
Yeah.
So I do think definitely in tougher times, I believe in spirituality. I believe in like a lot about manifestation and like speaking things into existence.
Cool.
I don't meditate. I wish I did. Um,
What
but
do
I
you
don't have
what's
time.
your
And
what's
I'm
your feeling
like,
about manifestation then? Go.
I just think it's a real thing. And I do think that you like speak things into reality. And I think that talking about like your goals and really just helps you come up with plans to how to achieve them that's reasonable. But so I'm a big believer in at least manifestation, and I think you can manifest anything, and I believe that I have manifested everything positive in my career. I think I manifested myself becoming an owner of Bounce because I was saying like I'm the only way I would stay at this job is if I became an owner. If not, I have to go somewhere else, and then like bam, I became an owner. Um, but like just going to like certain red carpets for the Nash News and like every milestone that we've hit, I feel like we spoke into existence. We set them as goals. We spoke about them and how to make them happen, which is why they did. Are you a spiritual person?
I have been like way more over the past like 2-3 years. My growing up, I've been very, very like force-fed spirituality in a sense.
Okay, I didn't know
I
that.
like, yeah, my grandparents are like very, very Catholic, and like
Okay.
it kind of like turned me off to it in a sense because it was just like literally so force fed that you were just like, I don't really want to deal with this. Like, yeah, I know God is good, that kind of thing. But then like, I don't know, as I got older and like more recently, I've definitely like I actually like try and watch like mass on Sundays on YouTube, and like I don't know. It's definitely something that I find, but I also have done like tons of meditation and tons of like manifesting, and I just have kind of combined like these two worlds. And that's why I ask people, because it's however you really want to look at it. And I don't really care which way you want to look at it in a sense, but I do think it's something that's super important for a lot of people, is to like kind of just like ask those inner questions to yourself, and then like I don't know, feel that like type of energy in a sense, because it's all around us, like there is this form of manifestation like you're talking about. You can speak things into existence because other people have done it and talk about it and talk about how the right mindset can create, these mass amounts of wealth or prosperity or whatever it is. So
I think
yeah,
it's really healthy and like part of a well balanced life to be spiritual and have
yeah,
it gives you morals, if anything, which I think it was also imposed. I was raised Jewish, but it was imposed on me as a kid as well. And I think when I asked my parents now as an adult, like, why did you do this? They just wanted to give me morals and something to fall back on. And like, I think that's fair. And like, I
yeah, no, I agree with
imagine,
that.
yeah,
There's definitely nothing wrong with being taught these morals, and like I mean they're great things to know, and I always can fall back on it. I think that is probably one of the nicest things about, yeah, as a kid I didn't really understand it, but as I grow older and like the actual realities of life start slapping you in the face and you're just like, oh god, I'm scared now, like well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to afford this? How do I, achieve this next goal? And a lot of times it's just like, I don't know the answer to any of these questions realistically, other than it's just like, all right, if I think the right way and I have the right mindset, then the sky's the fucking limit. And I'm just going to keep on going. So,
I completely agree.
yeah, so that's really why I ask everybody, about spirituality. So then on the reverse side of this, what does fear mean to you, and do you use it or do you fight it? Like,
Okay, let me think about it. Fear. I try to fight it. I feel like if I am fearful of something, it's usually rejection, which like I've spoke about. I've done a lot of work to try to not be. If I overthink something that I'm scared of, I will avoid it. So my goal when I feel fear is to tackle it head on right away.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the short answer to that.
How are you attacking it like head on though? Like, do you have like a tactic that you're using to like stop these like let's say for me, like fear would be like equated to like a negative thought in a sense.
Yeah, if you have a negative thought, you have to address it in like 30 seconds or it lives with you.
Yeah.
So do I have a tactic? I think the tactic is to take a step back and try to be really realistic because a lot of fear, I think, is just driven from like unrealistic thoughts or scenarios. At least my fear, like I have a lot of anticipatory anxiety. So, like, I anticipate the craziest things that the chances of that actually happening are very, very slim. So, I kind of just take some time to remind myself of that. And I remind myself of like my how I handle rejection and like what is the worst case. I think I will always ask myself what is the worst case scenario and like would I be able to move past the worst case scenario? Most of the time it's yeah. And like, we're older now, we're seasoned, like we've been through enough stuff where we can kind of tackle things more level headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? I feel like the interviewer. I'm so sorry.
No, I don't care. I'll talk all you want. No, fear is a struggle that I have had my entire life. I've struggled with being scared of people, of situations, talking to certain people. Like one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is to literally just get better at talking. Like because I feel like I can almost talk to like a brick wall half the time, but there are scenarios where in the past I've been like afraid to talk to someone who was like a high level figure or something like that because whatever reason I'm just like, oh no, what if they don't like me or whatever. It's just stupid. Like it's like who cares, they're all people, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that's one of the main things that have like caused a lot of fear in my life is like specific people and approaching them on things and how to articulate my feelings and so on. The way I've been able to get around all these like negative thoughts and so on is literally just by pushing them completely out of my brain. Like when I get nervous about, talking to somebody, or if I get nervous about a situation or like a money situation, whatever it is, I literally have to just take that thought and like throw it out the window and just like bring something else into my life. And it can be like a spiritual response. I could be like, literally be like, God, like, help me. I'm screwed right now. My brain is like, bad. Or in another case where you're just like, picture yourself somewhere nice, or, imagine the complete opposite of the bad thing happening. Like, what if it does work out, Um, that's probably my answer to being fearful, I would say. That's like, it's not easy for sure. It's an everyday process of trying to get better at it, and that's why I even recommend like meditating for a lot of people. I still
Right.
do a lot of meditating because it is important to like kind of just get like quiet and like, I don't know, understand your feelings and be able to like tackle them in the right situations and not just like get super overwhelmed and like, I don't know, you'd be surprised that you have a lot of answers. You just have to kind of get quiet.
I completely agree.
Um So I have like a couple more questions, but I do have just like a side note that I want to ask you because I don't
Okay.
think I've really ever asked you this question before. So like obviously with Nash News, you've been able to like grow that like massively. And I
Yeah.
asked this kind of like on my other podcast with Chris, because I was just like, I'm curious. What did you do to like get it to? I think you got it to like what, like 50,000 followers, like pretty quickly, I want to say. Like, what was like, did you have a strategy, something that you did that you were like, yeah, this is something that worked for me?
I think that the number one strategy is consistency. I think that's really what worked for me. Like I just never gave up. Of course, there was like posts that didn't do as well as I wanted it to, or like there were days where I lost followers because of things that I posted, or I got really mean DMs or whatever. But I try to outweigh that with all the positivity that I get and all the connections that I make with other country music fans, which was my favorite part of the origins of the Nash News. So in terms of strategy, like I think it's just consistency. But I also think it's important to say that like I didn't do it alone. I don't remember exactly how many followers I had before I hired my first employee. Maybe it was like 80,000.
That's a lot.
But to get it where, yeah, but Instagram was different back in the day too. This was like I was early to just like being a media outlet on Instagram, which I
Mhm.
think helped. And now there's 100 of us. So it's definitely just more crowded now. But yeah, so consistency and just like acknowledging that I didn't do it on my own. There was, and now I have like a whole team of people helping get done everything that we're working on.
Yeah, but consistency. Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the things I tell every client that I work with is like, hey, you have to be consistent. If you're not consistent, it doesn't help you grow. Like, so Chris said something to me in the other podcast, which stuck out with me, that he posted like 3 times a day for a year, and I think I brought up to him, I was like, I'm pretty sure Rachel does the same thing, like she posts like 3 times a day every day, like if I'm not mistaken, like if not
Yeah.
three, it's like several, like.
Yeah, I think there was times where I was posting 5 times a day. So yeah, a lot of output, which I think again just goes back to consistency. If you're like talking like tactically, I think being really early to social media trends and like features always helps. Like I think you'll see bumps. If you don't see it in your follower count, you at least see it in your engagement. Like
Yeah.
you'll see bumps whenever Instagram rolls out a new feature if you're using it. And you'll see bumps like our DMs, because do you have like that notes feature on your Instagram stories?
Yeah.
And like very few people are using that. And I found ever since we started using it, like our engagement has been up. So I think like tactically just using new features is important to like if you're just looking to
Absolutely.
grow an account.
I just made one for Bounce today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sometimes on the weekends I'll like sneak in and be like, open, we're open. But
Yeah.
the notes are kind of hard. I don't really know what you're supposed to write in those. I've just been coming up with random different
Yeah,
things.
totally. No, I mean, I don't think there is a right or wrong, but that's also the best part about marketing and social media, that there is no right or wrong. Like
Right.
nobody really knows what they're doing. And I've heard many people kind of just be like, yeah, like I tried this and it works. But I think for you, it was really just being like super consistent. Obviously, you had like quality, you knew like exactly what you were talking about. It's all about Nashville and like country music and the whole surroundings of it, everything that comes with it, the culture and everything. So like I would assume you probably were almost like a first mover in that like specific industry, right?
Yeah, in terms of like Instagram specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because like we're from New York, country music isn't big around here. And I remember going down to Nashville, going to CMA Fest, which is like this big country music festival they have every June, and it's incredible. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, people in New York, Long Island, like they don't know about this. They would love this. This is so fun. And I was just looking for places to keep up with country music on Instagram, and it didn't exist. And I remember just getting in the car with my friend and saying, like, I have this crazy idea, but like I want to start this. And she was like, you should do it. And it was just a passion project. Like I was just kind of running it on the side of Bounce. I was working at Bounce full time at this point, and I was just running it on the side for a long time. And then during COVID, I was like, well, Bounce is closed, and New York rules. Like we never knew if we were going to reopen. I should try to make this a business. So I started doing a lot of research into how to monetize a digital media company, which is not easy. So it was it's definitely challenging, and I appreciate the challenge. Like, I guess like going back to what ticks, like I love just facing something and like tackling it and beating it. Like, I like beating a challenge.
Yeah, you want someone to tell you no. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to take on challenges in this space, you know. Like every day I have like crazy ideas and I'm just like, I should do this, do this, do this, do this, you know. But that's also like the cool part about this whole podcast, which is the follow the winners, is to literally try and follow the people out there that are doing it. And it's funny, every time I move like my office around or like whatever, I find this, it's so funny. I have this fortune cookie and I always come across it every time like I move shit around. I'm just like, here's this fortune cookie. And it says chance favors those in motion. And I like I don't I this is like a probably like a 2-year-old fortune cookie at this point. And not the actual cookie, but just the little thing, you know? And it's like it's just crazy to me because it really is like one of the most important things is just keep on moving, like just keep on chugging along, you know, and don't stop, don't give up, and eventually it's gonna work out, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And it doesn't have to be like 100% every single day. I think like
Yeah,
that is unrealistic. And people who say that they're doing grinding 100% every day are going to burn out, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, any motion forward is positive. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, one thing every day, that's all you got to do, you know.
I agree.
That's how it all starts. All right, cool. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the Follow the Winners podcast. I really appreciate you coming on here and talking about your, you know, your ins and outs of bounce in the Nash news and your stories. And I don't know, it's super interesting. I really wanted to have you on here. I made a list of people that I know, and I was just like, yeah, Rachel's definitely on this list because she like blows my mind. Out of all the people I know, like you're killing it the most and
I
following.
appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
but I'm
I feel the
serious.
same about you. It's nice to like have somebody else who I know grew up similarly to me in a similar place that I did, who's achieving these things and like understanding the entrepreneur journey. Cause it's like a lonely journey if
Hell
you
yeah.
don't really have other people that you know are doing it.
It sure is.
And thank you for everything that you do for Bounce. So self promo yourself, you crush the Bounce marketing, and you've done work for the Nash News too. That has always been fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're
Awesome.
welcome.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Rachel.